And good evening to all you folks watching here on Zoom, joining us, and to everybody watching on YouTube. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. We're broadcasting tonight from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Though it's sad that we can't gather in person, it is quite wonderful that we're unlimited by the regular bounds of geography. And so as a result, we're able to have folks like you from across the country joining us, and also a special guest who might not have otherwise been able to join us too. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Daw Books and Penguin Random House Canada for co-presenting this evening. We're here tonight to hear from two authors who gracefully straddle the line between science and the fantastic. I'll be disappearing in just a little bit after introducing both our guests returning for the Q&A. But I would encourage you, as the evening goes along, there's a Q&A box that you'll see right at the bottom of the Zoom window. As questions occur to you, please feel free to call that up and write your questions in, and we'll get to those once the formal portion of the evening is over. I'll also be including a little bit of information in the chat in just a moment about how you can go about getting a signed copy of tonight's feature book, and of course order books from our special guest as well from the store that I'm physically located in at the moment. So to introduce both of tonight's participants, Gerald Brandt is the author of the cyberpunk San Angeles sci-fi trilogy, The Courier, The Operative, and The Rebel. The first of the trilogy was a finalist for the Aurora Award for Best Novel. His short story, Storm, appeared in the 2013 pre-Aurora award-winning anthology, Blood and Water. Brandt's newest near-future series launched just this year with Threader Origins, a science fiction thriller that incorporates quantum physics and parallel worlds into an intricate plot in which string theory science just might end the universe as we know it. Praised by Jason M. Huff and Robert J. Sawyer, it has also been called a compelling, thought-provoking must-read by no less than an authority than Julie E. Czerneda. Now, our other guest, appropriately enough, Julie E. Czerneda, is a biologist and writer whose science fiction and fantasy has received international acclaim, awards, and best-selling status. Julie Czerneda's Web Shifter library series from Daw Books marries cutting-edge biology with one of the best, most curious alien protagonists in fiction. Her 2018 novel Search Image marked the return to her beloved Web Shifter universe after 15 years away, bringing her rabid readers up to date on the world of Essen and her human counterpart, Paul Regham. Author of over 20 novels from Daw Books, April sees the release of Mirage and Spectrum, the latest entries in her library series. Outside of science fiction, Czerneda's most recent fantasy novel, The Gossamer Mage, which you will see just over my shoulder, was described as her finest work to date by Anne Bishop and as a masterpiece by none other than Gerald Brandt. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Gerald Brandt and Julie E. Czerneda.
Hi, John. Hi, Gerald.
Hi, how are you?
I'm just great. I'd like to apologize ahead of time. I've got an inferior connection tonight, so I'll be a little bit jippy, but you should be able to hear me okay. Gerald will be perfection.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, this is marvelous, Gerald. Here we were to Nally Robinson. We're in the same bookstore, sort of, with all those lovely people.
Yeah, the pandemic has made us, change the way we do things, and I love the fact that we can be in completely separate provinces and still be in the same event. This is absolutely wonderful.
And still in our offices.
Still
every time I see you, you're in your office.
I kind of live here, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets to be cozy after a while, and nice books on the background. I'd like to preface by saying that, yes, I loved Threader Origins. I had the privilege of reading it early on, and it was actually, am I not mistaken, this was actually written before, or conceptualized before you did your San Angeles series.
I actually wrote it in between book 1 and book 2 of the San Angeles series.
Okay. Oh, it's yummy. Wait till you read it. Yummy. Yeah, and I was going to say, how's your weather?
We're getting a little cool again, but we're staying above zero for now. Just north of us, there appears to be, or yesterday, I guess there was a big dump of snow. We had 20 centimeters. So, but Winnipeg's been good.
Nasty.
Yeah, rain yesterday, all day yesterday.
Marvelous, good.
Yeah.
We haven't had rain yet, they promise, but we have hit double digits and without a minus sign for the first time. And we were minus 20 on the weekend, and we were plus, I can't even say it, plus 10 today. So it's nice. And that's because I'm near Ottawa, for those who don't know. And so I'm actually, for me, this is after 8 o'clock, and it's only an hour. It's not too bad. And it's kind of fun. Kind of fun,
we
indeed.
hit plus 14 a couple of days ago, but it is March in Winnipeg, so we could still have a blizzard.
Well, we don't talk about that. No. So books. Okay. One of the things you and I talked about before this was the fact that we are both releasing books that are parts of series. And we know that there are a lot of writers as well as readers out there listening to us right now. And we were going to talk a little bit about what that process was like. And I know you've written more than Thread of Origins. You've already written the next book, haven't you?
I have. I'm actually doing revisions on book 3 in the series.
That's just crazy.
Not as crazy as you think. Book 3 was actually due a while back, but the pandemic kind of took the wind out of my sails for a while. So I'm still working on it.
That's okay. That's still really good. I mean, it's I took 15 years to write a sequel. So which is enough time to know that people probably need to reread things. So for anyone who followed my character Essen in the first 3 books, she's actually, if you want to reintroduce it, I wrote an e-novella just because I was so terrified people would have forgotten the character that came out, The Only Thing to Fear, before these. And it gave me a bit of a practice run at what was happening in these books and why did I say those things? So how do you keep track?
Currently, I have 3 novels floating in my head. Nice. I'm going insane because of it. But, my boss at work hasn't recognized that fact yet, so life is still good. I also have a wall full of Post-it notes for the current novel, and I do reference all the previous novels as I'm doing the development work. So, how about you? What? There you go.
I keep notes. But I've got a feeling there's actually Post-it notes in here, if that helps. But I keep lists of everything. I've learned my lesson, and weird stuff. I think there's scribbles of ages of characters and things and where things happen and when they do. It saved my bacon, especially when you're jumping around from other books to this book. I mean, you've had I'm going to call it a privilege, Gerald. You've been writing 3 books in a row in the same world.
It's a blessing and a curse.
You're stuck there. Now, you say you have 3 books in your head all at once. Do you mean the 3 books of Threaders, or
yes.
Pardon me, the Galactica
the Quantum Empirica.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, all 3 of those are currently in my head, and the details are beginning to blur between them. So I'm As I start talking about one, and then I start throwing in details from book 2 simply by mistake because they've blended for me a little bit.
I've noticed readers don't mind a little repetition, a little echo, as long as you don't suddenly have somebody appear in book 3 that you actually forgot to put in book 2. Sheila will find that.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Yeah. And so you keep those massive tomes for every series that you do?
Well, for my first couple of books, I mean, what I kept was notebooks that contained the reference to the file names, because I could only have files this big that was on floppies. So I had all these charts of where to find pages 1 to 10 pages. I've moved past that. What I do now is I actually, for the book I'm working on now, is the first one I've made the journal up completely before I started writing. So I did
Oh,
all
wow.
my world building on paper first. So that's really, really been helpful. So it's sort of been, my journaling has gotten better, but I certainly use it. Here, let me go sideways and see how far this thing will stretch. And I have brought up, these are the ones for Night's Edge, and I'm going to be writing more of those coming up. So for a play of shadow, it's more things like plot things that I think of, faces. There's holes, of course, because I didn't fill this one right up. Any kind of image that sort of caught my attention that I might like this is the sailing ship with the nets hanging out and things like that. Just I just grab them and keep them there. So that's been helpful. Usually, though, what happens is once the book's going well, I forget I've got a journal and I just, move on.
Perfect.
Yeah. I was so good at it once upon a time. And now when I get to about the last third, I say, oh, I know what's happening. I'm good. I'm good to go. Then Sheila shows up and I write her comments in my journal too. For those who don't know, Gerald and I, we share an editor who is very precise, very, very good, and will rip off all the bandages and things that you put on the book that you didn't want to go there or you missed it, or she'll find it.
Yes, she
will.
You
can't ever miss them. She will find them.
No, after your phone call with her, you're ripping out 10, 20,000 words and then you're putting in 30 more.
And it feels, well, I would say it feels good, but you have to, she always catches things. Tanya Huff and I have this ongoing thing where we say, have you managed to correct everything ahead of time? No, not yet.
And if you guys haven't done it, I don't have a hope in heck.
No, it's just, well, and it's so important having that next pair of eyes, that I don't know about you, but I don't have any beta readers or anything like that. It goes from me to Sheila, and she's a great beta reader, but that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I do
you
have
have
beta
people
readers
that help
first.
read for you?
Absolutely. I have 3 or 4 beta readers that I use on a regular basis, and then a couple that I pick randomly. So usually about 4 or 5 people read it at least once or twice before I send it to Sheila. And she still just finds all of my holes and all of my weaknesses. And she's very good at that.
There you go. Yeah, I think it's, for those who are curious why I don't, that doesn't mean that nobody else ever reads it. If I have a passage that requires some expertise I don't have, then I pass that material by somebody that knows a great deal more about it than I do. And they'll be pretty good at finding, if I haven't explained it well, or if there's a better way or a cool thing I haven't thought of. So I do that all the time. But part of it is that readers read things so fast. And some of the people I would really love to have read things, I want to wait for the anticipation of them reading it. But if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does.
Yeah, the book comes out, they've read it within 6 hours, and you're just saying, oh, crap.
It took you a year to write, and it's gone in hours. Yeah.
So this is one reason why I'm really happy I turned in Spectrum before Mirage came out, sort of at the same time in hardcover. So I actually had this blissful period of time in which I could sort of go, I don't care if you've read it, there's another one. Which you have.
I have, sorry?
Oh, you have that advantage now. You have 2 books sitting there ready to come out. Bang, bang.
That's true. Yeah. The second one still needs 1 more pass by Sheila, I think. So we're hoping to get that done shortly. We'll see how that works. And the third one she hasn't seen at all yet. It's nowhere near ready.
I'm just trying to see if I can find one of my Sheila pages. They're really hand scratches. If she ever saw it, she'd think, oh my gosh, you never take notes properly, woman. Oh, there we go. I always have a tab in my journals that says Sheila. And it looks a lot like that. So I check off whatever she's found for me, and the ways to do it, and how I could think of, and cheat that as my Bible.
That's exactly what I used to do, but Sheila talks significantly faster than I can write. So now I record the conversations and I make the check boxes later, and I make sure I get them all done.
She's grateful because she has her own, she has all the side of her manuscript. She's told you about this, right? Like she actually has a computer program now that lets her make all her annotations. I wish we would get that, but no, she wants to talk to us about it. So
I did get that. She talked to me, and then she sent me her copy with all her annotations on it.
Gerald, you're getting special treatment. Oh wow! I'm not sure I want that.
I can get.
Was it scary?
It wasn't that bad.
Oh goodness. We have, not so much that we have an agenda, but we had a couple of things we wanted to show people. And Roger's been here and he's moved all my things. Oh, there it is. Remember when you did your bio, you talked about this wonderful anthology by Hayden Trenholm. I know Liz is here. I'm not sure if Hayden's popped in yet. But it's wonderful. It won the Aurora for Best Anthology. So it's a wonderful, wonderful book with amazing names in it, including Gerald and I in our first co-publication, I think.
Yes, and my first publication.
Was it?
Yes.
Well, that's even more cool. So if you buy a book of ours, one of ours, doesn't matter which one, from McNally Robinson between now and the end of April, let me know. And I will send you my story signed to you.
As will I.
Yours too. Yours looks much better formatted than mine.
You are breaking up a little bit again. Oh, and she's frozen. So it's just me. All right. Well, until she comes back. Yeah, so if anybody who buys a book will get signed copies. I think we're probably going to end up emailing PDFs out that we have signed and personalized for everybody. If Julie has some other ideas when she comes back, hopefully she'll be able to.
Okay, we can do that.
Oh, there she is. She's back. There's no video, but we have voice. Are you still there?
Oh, good Lord, because I keep seeing you and it looks fine. Yes. Oh, dear. Let me go out and come in again.
Oh. All right.
Did that work? Am I back?
You are. You're a little pixelated and jerky, but you are back.
Oh, okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to put that information in the chat for people. Why don't you do your reading, Gerald?
All right, yeah. I'm going to do just maybe a 3-minute reading from the opening of Threader Origins. All right, so I'm not going to do too much introduction and just go right into it. He was dying for the second time this week. The sidewalk swayed under his feet, buckling and tearing, breaking into chunks before his eyes. His gut roiled and he fell first to his knees and then his hands. His skin stung with a sudden cold that froze the sweat on his back. His shirt hardened and cracked as the ice broke into small pieces and fell to the ground like snow. The concrete sidewalk changed to mud, morphing into frozen winter ice. Grass sprang up between his fingers. The houses disappeared in a wet smear, replaced by fields of low scrub and bogs. No, this couldn't be happening again. Darwin Lloyd tumbled to his side. His entire body ached with the pain of hundreds of needles. He held a trembling hand in front of his face, sure that he would see only a mass of blood and bone. Yet it remained intact. He spun it to look at the back and made a fist. Smooth skin stretched across his knuckles, white from the pressure. They turned red when he spread his fingers out and blood flowed back into flesh. Confusion and fear plucked at the corners of his mind before panic washed it away in a mad rush. He stood, struggling to keep his balance, lurching in the sudden stillness of everything around him, and falling back down. He was afraid to breathe, afraid to run, afraid to stay still. The concrete sidewalk reappeared, rough and solid under his hands, bringing him back to what was happening. Relief coursed through him. Maybe it was over. He lifted his head and saw ramshackle houses filling the sides of the street instead of the homes he'd grown up with. Some of these were so broken that they used their neighbors for support, leaning against each other like tired old men waiting for the end of days. The relief he'd felt only seconds before deserted him. Everything sheared again. Tall structures rose around him, glass and steel reaching for the bright blue sky and scattered clouds. And then it was gone. His body exploded into 1,000 pieces, each one aware of where it was, of when. He sensed each piece fracture before they exploded into 1,000 more fragments. His mind grasped for stability, even as it was torn apart by the memories, the sights and smells, the tactile feedback of each part of him, spread across the vast distances of space. Time became an abstract thing. The tip of his left pinky finger shriveled and wrinkled with age. Part of his elbow grew chubby and dimpled with the fat of a newborn baby. His earlobe disintegrated into dust. Darwin tried to close his eyes, tried to push away the tens of thousands of sensory inputs that jabbed into his mind. Only pieces of his eyes closed, the rest continuing to feed his visual cortex, pounding it with images that made no sense. And I'm going to stop right there, and hopefully everybody's intrigued and buys the book. And
I am clapping wildly. I'm not sure my face is moving because I've been in touch with John. Wonderful, Gerald. That was wonderful.
thanks.
So
And
that
you
was
also
from
have a reading
Shredder
for us?
Origins. I do. Hopefully you can see a copy of Search Image. Mine is not so scary as yours. Mine is naughty.
Perfect.
I waited till you were drinking for that. All right. Things would have gone much better if I'd avoided the RANDs and their ergonomic multiplexing oscillator, patent pending in 2 systems entirely. In hindsight, never the view of the moment. The entanglement started when Scarlett proposed we cut across the line. It wasn't so much any urgency to reach Paul and Lionel to uncover whatever she found threatening, as my webkin's thorough distrust of any gathering of unrelated beings who weren't surrounded by vigilant armed troops, ideally with those arms out and ready. The fresh off the train crush in the main lobby made her uncomfortable. The line wasn't much better, a seething clot circulating in the opening past the boot and exosuit racks. We hadn't expected anyone to bring physical things, didn't want anyone to, and in the beginning cherished the process and nuisance would discourage us. To library and trade did qualify as new information we couldn't get any other way, so we had to keep accepting it in trade. And under that broad heading fell certain inventions, materials, new children's toys, styles, and hats, not fudge, unfortunately. Overall, eclectic clutter, none of which had intrinsic value, and built a system to record all relevant data for the collection. And the next step was to send everything home with their owners. But no, that wasn't trading, and almost no one proved willing to carry out what they'd struggled to get here in the first place. The library's first basement was already, Paul predicting we'd reach a crisis in the second level by our second year of operation and have to pay to ship it off-world. Scholars. Fortunately, the majority of objects were small enough to slip into a pocket or hold in an appendage. We'd neglected to add luggage to our contract with the local company operating our train, and more concerned with overnight guests than knickknacks, and it saved us now. I shuddered to think what would have arrived if we'd arranged for freight. My first inkling of the RAND's offering came when Scarlett stepped fastidiously clear of their cluster, feeling the same about communal organisms as she did about scuff marks on her polished boots. As I was right on her shiny heels, this put my next step inside the RAND. who panicked. The ergonomic multiplex appropriate sex toy for a library, and I cycled. Because to be within and to be one of was the best possible feeling, though there was a smidge of confusion and that I answered with, I love you all so much, which would be when the net came down.
Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, thank you. So that was search image, if my picture shows. There you go.
Yeah, your video's pretty bad, but your audio seems to be coming through okay.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, you just ignore me and just focus on Gerald.
No, I wouldn't recommend that.
Oh, sure. And I guess while I'm on this Essen kick and the book's coming out, I have a virtual book signing underway right now. I can't be at McNally Robinson. Gerald has signed copies there, I believe, for his books, which is fabulous. But if I am mailing out book plates that look like this, and I will sign and personalize you, and they even have a nice little Essen on them. I don't know if that's showing up or not. So just go to my website, find me, and ask me for one.
All right. Did you want to put, I'll type that in the chat for you if you'd like.
Thank you. Yes. So let me see, what else? Oh, yes, I had a question for you. Do you find writing the next book in a series easier, or did you find it easier to just jump into Threader Origins, the first book of something new?
I find the first book of something new significantly easier to write because everything is fresh, and my mind is just jumping to all of these different opportunities. Once you get into book two, you've kind of already laid the groundwork and the rules of your world or your societies, and sometimes it can be difficult to come up with new things that still fit into those rules that you've perhaps even inadvertently made in book number one. And so book twos are hard, but for me, I think book threes are the absolute worst thing for me to write. Book threes for me have always been the most difficult. Granted, I've only done 2 book threes by now, and I'm only working on the second one, but book threes are very, very difficult for me. How about you?
That's a third of your work.
It is. So only 1/3 is actually fun and exciting and easy, and 2/3 is difficult. How's that?
Well, I guess that begs the question. Then is Threader Origins going to be a 3-book, like a trilogy? Are you talking about the book that finishes everything, like you did in the San Angeles?
Yeah, book 3 will most certainly end Darwin's story. But it's a big world. If people love it enough and there's enough sales to support it, and Sheila says, write me another one, I have plenty of other stories in the same world that I can tell. So how about you?
Nice.
What's easier, book 1, book 2, or book 3, or book 10? Which one's easier to write?
I think it's starting fresh, because I'm doing that right now. And it's been a long time since Gossamer Mage was the other one. They're both standalones, and I haven't done many of those. And it's extraordinarily liberating to know this is what you have to write in, and you have to get it done all in this one package. So I find it's a lot of passion for that. I really enjoy that. With a series, I know I'm going to have more time to fix things or do things or add stuff. I take a more of a, not lazy approach, but I just want to resolve it to the point, and I know I'm going to pick it up again. So there's not that urgency of get it done. That being said, there are certain series I love coming back to, like Essen. She's like a holiday. So whenever I get a chance to write her, I'm thrilled. So they're not trilogies. They're just going to keep going as long as I get to write them. And I'm pretty sure I'll get to write them for a while yet. But I am going back to Night's Edge, and that'll be exciting but for that one, I've already know where things are going. It's going to be very much you go there, these things happen, and it's all going to lead up to something big. So that's exciting too. So I guess I don't have a particular problem with any of them. I find the middle book of a 3 the easiest to write because things are underway and I don't have to wrap it up. I can just make things more complicated. So I actually find those to be kind of like the gooey, juicy filling.
Right. I find book 2s to be more like the middle of a standalone novel, the muddy middle, where you're trying to get from that exciting opening to that thrilling ending, and you've got to fill in all those details that actually make the book work.
That's when you need another arc.
Yes. Yeah. Another arc is a little difficult with the Threader origins, since all 3 books are actually from one person's point of view. So I found it easier to add extra arcs in on the first series than I did on the second one. Oh,
yes.
Oh, there she is. Oh,
yeah.
You're back.
Yeah, I lost you too. I got you back.
Okay.
Oh, this is great. Questions? Did you want John to start asking questions?
Yeah. Yep. I think that'll work out rather well.
He said he was.
Hello, folks. So our first question comes from, and I will encourage everybody while we're going through these questions, please feel free to write some more in the Q&A box and we can keep the conversation going along. The first question comes from Sarah McGibbo, and apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name. What character in your books do readers respond to the most?
I'm going to give that to Julie first, because I think her answer will be far more interesting and complex than mine.
Well, I'm not sure if this will show, but when you write about a blue blob, people really get invested. So Essen has her own fandom. I didn't really see it coming, but I love her, so other people do. That's certainly a character that people get invested in. Everything else, it's all over the map. I think there's a character, if you write good characters, there's someone for everyone, if that makes sense. I like to make the secondary characters jump up and do as much as the main characters as at times. So I would say Essen by far. And Gerald?
I haven't got much in the way of feedback to that. I've had some people mention, and really my new series has only been out for a little over a month now, so I haven't gotten any feedback on that one really yet from readers. So from the first series, it would be my main character who, because I do have Threader Origins and Threader War and Threader God in my head right now, I can't remember her name, even though I wrote 3 books about her. Chris, that was her name. There we go. It's back. A lot of people seem to like the way Chris handled herself and dealt with the world and was in control. So I'd say that, that would be the only one at this point.
This is a question from Andrew Park to both of you. And it's a 2-part question also. At what point do you get beta readers involved and or editors? And as the second part, do your plots change significantly from draft to draft?
All right, I'll start with this one.
Since I'll start my answer. Oh, good, yeah.
I'll put my hand up. Okay, I do have beta readers, and I don't give it out to beta readers until I think it's pretty much done. I don't want to give them something that is incomplete, because there might be some plot points that I have to go back and correct, or there might be some storylines that I have to strengthen in order to make my ending a little bit, better, whatever. So I wait until I have something that I think is perhaps not as good as I can make it, but it is complete from front to back and makes sense. And that's when it goes out to my beta readers. And then it comes back and I work on it again, and then it goes to my editor. So, and you want me to answer part 2, or I think Julie should take part 1 first?
Okay, yes. I shouldn't say I never have beta readers, because I certainly did in the beginning. I just tend to write a little faster than beta readers can keep up to some extent. And the other thing is that I'm very selfish about the story. I like to have it in my head. get it to absolutely the best I can get it, and then let Sheila see it. So I do a first draft, but that's a misnomer because I'm sure Gerald is the same, many writers. I constantly fix as I go. And so it's not just, I look over my shoulder. For example, I'm on my third iteration of chapter 1 for the book I'm working on now, because as I went along, I realized I don't have enough behind me to stand on. So I've been backfilling as I go. So perhaps that's a second, third draft of the same material. But the book itself, I always say there's the first draft, the final draft. And the final draft is when I incorporate Sheila's suggestions and my own, because once you've been away from it for a little while, then you'll see more things. And it's certainly, there have been books I've been nervous about. I actually had a competition for beta readers for the Clan Chronicles when I went back after 20 years, so that people could tell me if they actually, if I made mistakes, could they get it? Could they get the characters again? That was important. When do I know it's ready for the editor? Usually as soon as she needs it, it's ready for the editor.
Deadlines are magical things.
We work to time. We work to deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Good question, Andrew. Thanks.
When I'm doing my first draft, I never go back. I get that. I bang out that first draft from front to end in linear fashion. And if I find things that I know I have to change, I drop notes into the document saying, I need to put this here, I need to put that there, but I don't actually go and do it because I've got to get that first draft and everything done and down. Yeah. So part 2 of the question.
That's interesting because I keep track of the.
Go ahead.
Yes.
We have a bit of a lag. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say that's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting that you do that, because for me, the easiest part of the book is the last third. I almost never change a word. So I have to massage the first part over and over, and I can't move forward until I have that. And so if I look at my revision, I probably revised the first 35,000 words many times and never anything after that. So it's interesting the way the process works. I can't go forward till I fixed it. Different. Everyone's different.
Was it like that when you first started out, or is it like that now because you have the experience under your belt that I still don't?
I think it's because I just always wrote for myself way back when, and I've never really gotten used to writing for anybody else. I don't know. I just write it like that. That's how I do it. Everyone's got their way.
That's right. Yeah. So part 2 of the question was, does the plot change as the story goes along? And I'm going to say, for me anyways, it will change a little bit, but my ending never changes. I'm a plotter, so I have a whiteboard on the far wall of my office with, I think right now I have about 80 Post-it notes, one for every scene in the book that I'm working on. And I know every scene I'm going to write in order, whose point of view it's in, if I have multiple point of views, where it takes place, the description of where it is. I have that all done before I sit down and write the first word. Then I get to the halfway point and I realize that writing is organic. So that I've put in things that aren't in the plot. And that's when I go back and I take a look at the last half of the plot and I say, okay, I need to change this to fit with what I've written. But like I say, that the ending itself doesn't change. Just some of the points on how I get there will change. Other than that, the plot is there.
Interesting, because actually we do the same thing, Gerald. You just do it on your board first, and I've done that for a couple of books. I've done it scene by scene because I had to be that tight. But I think what I'm doing, I do that now when I'm writing, and you do it in your prep, so you can sit down and write straight through. Whereas I'm not that sure where I'm going when I go forward. What's behind me has got it all in there. That's neat.
Yeah. I found that if I didn't have everything plotted out, I would sit behind the computer for my morning or evening of writing, and I wouldn't be able to know I didn't know where I was going. So I'd sit there for an hour or two staring at a blank page, trying to figure out where the story was going. So I have to have everything done in advance. And then when I sit down, even if the scene I wrote before is garbage, and I know it's garbage and it's going to be corrected in revision, I leave it and I go on to the next scene, and it can be absolutely golden, and I just keep going.
So Jana Panicio was wondering what you're both reading right now.
Julie first on this one.
Oh, what we're reading for fun? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I can go first. I'm reading for fun is I'm reading a lot of science books, which is also fun. But I'm reading C.J. Cherry's Divergence, which I just got yesterday in the mail, and I've got Anne Bishop's The Queen's Weapons just arrived, and I've also got a lovely copy of Gerald's new book, which I have read in early form, and I'm looking forward to delving into.
And since I'm actually holding three novels in my head, I don't dare open a book because I'm going to get immersed in a really good book, and everything that I have on my novels is going to fall out. And so that's not going to be good for my production or my deadline. So I'm currently actually not reading anything. I think the last book I read, trying to remember, it's been a while. I've been immersed in the quantum empirical for quite some time. You know, the only book I can actually remember reading that has not been a reread was probably The Gossamer Mage, which is right there. So yeah, I think that's the last one I can remember. And that one, I was working on, I was probably working on book 2 at the time, and I read The Gossamer Mage before it came out. And unfortunately, it is such an awesome book that I had to go back and reread all of Threader Origins and what I had written in Threader War just to remember what I was writing, because Julie's book just took over every piece of my mind. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Gerald. I was about to say that when I find it helps my writing if I'm very different from what I'm writing. So I went through and I read a lot of mysteries. I enjoyed Dan Hanks's Captain Moxley. Just sit down, just grab a bit of it. It's so different from what I'm doing. It's like it's giving you a bit of a refresh. So I actually found I could write more afterwards. So if you're ever getting yourself kind of bogged down, I wouldn't hesitate to just read something totally not like what you're trying to write, just to get a little bit of words coming in that are so effortless. It's just so easy to read.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a try because I am currently a little bit bogged down. So I'll probably find something this evening that I can read.
Ruth Lickward was wondering, what do your beta readers help you with the most? Do you end up making major revisions based on their feedback?
Major? I wouldn't say anything that's major, nothing that will reshape the plot or a character's arc. I have one beta reader who finds nothing but mangled sentences and typos. I have another beta reader who says, oh, previously the curtains were orange and now they're red. What happened? Right. So each beta reader seems to have their own specialty, and the feedback that they give me, sometimes they'll find something that just is wrong. I've had this plot hole that has just opened up and sucked them in, and they have no idea what's going on. And then all of my beta readers will say, oops, mistake. And I'll make those are the biggest changes, but there's really nothing that affects the entire arc or the plot of the book at all. Julie?
I have a good example. Yeah, no, I have a good example. I wrote a short story about AI, and I sent it out to four people, and they came back feeling incredibly sympathetic to the AI, even though it was busy destroying everybody that it was put into. And I went, where did I go wrong? And then I realized that there's a cat walk by and he doesn't kick the cat. So all I had to do was have him kick the cat, and immediately he's a villain. It was perfect. I mean, I didn't have to rewrite much, but I had to identify what it was that readers needed. They needed something more than him mistreating people. Interestingly enough, it wasn't cutting it. So lesson learned.
Whenever you have the opportunity, kick a cat is what I'm getting from this.
Well, in your story, I would never kick a cat. I like cats.
Okay.
So Karina Sumner-Smith asks, outside of writing, what do you both do to help refill the creative well?
I'll let Julie go first on that one.
I thought you would talk about your Jeep.
I'm going to, but I've been
What do
told
I do?
I talk about the Jeep so much that I need to stop.
What do I do? Generally speaking, if anything creative comes my way that's well done, it makes me feel invigorated in writing, whether it's music or art or being out in nature. I do spend a lot of time outside. Those things all really, really help. For the book I'm working on right now, I need to research things like parasites and astronomy and cosmology and things like this. So that's kind of refilling the well as well, because I'm not going to use all that, but I have to know the words to use and why. So that's helpful as well. And I always watch pictures of Gerald's Jeep.
I've recently gotten into the non-fuel efficient thing of off-roading. So I have a built-up Jeep that I take rock crawling and just any place I can into the wilderness that is legal and allowed. I never break a new trail because that's just bad. You don't know what you're destroying. So I do that more in the summertime than in the winter. I also, if I go camping or I'll go for a walk, I think 2 weeks ago, I left the house at 8 a.m. and drove for 8 hours all around the back countries and back roads of Manitoba. I got so close to the US border that my cell phone told me that I was on my US plan. So I've got to remember to correct my bill on that one. So I've just got to get away from this office, this desk, this chair, and I just need to get outside, which is hard for me to do in the winter because I don't like winter.
Right. Elizabeth Benfeld was wondering, do you have pictures in your mind of what your main characters look like as you are writing? And I guess to that, do you visualize what you're writing?
I do. I know some authors will actually have pictures of actors or models or whatever that they will have so that they can have their character. I don't. I have a visual image in my head. One thing that I almost never do is I actually never put the description into the book. I might mention eye color or hair color, but or if there's a scar, but I never go into detail on what a character looks like. I would rather just paint with a broad brush and let the reader fill in the details so that they can have the character look the way that they would like him or her to look.
I'm not sure if I'm showing up at all, but I have folders and folders full of very strange biology, which informs a lot of the aliens that I have. In terms of people, usually it's up when it comes to cover time, and if there's going to be a face on the cover, then I need to get some kind of reference material, and that's when is there an actor that looks like that? Things like that can be helpful. But I know Elizabeth, and you're a wonderful visual artist, so I won't say I visualize them, but I know what's not right when I write as part of a description, and I know that's not quite right. And it's and I know some costumes, so I spend a little more time now on costumes and clothing descriptions than I ever used to. Everyone was in coveralls in my first book. I never thought much about it, but now they have real clothes.
Excellent. And so this is our final question for the evening. So thank you all for all of your questions. And it's a bit of a bittersweet one. It's from Sarah again. And she asks, what has been the impact of conferences on your careers? And in COVID times, have the virtual conferences been as helpful or certainly different?
Well, I'm just going to answer because I'm going to answer briefly. The best part of the virtual conference has been being able to do things like this, where I couldn't geographically manage it or budget-wise get there So there've been those opportunities, but not to be able to sit across a table and or sit by the bar or walk in the hallway and to actually meet people face to face that's hard. I'm missing that big time, and I can't wait to get back in. What about you, Gerald?
Yeah, conferences are big for me. I miss the people I meet. I miss the readers. I miss the other authors. I would not be a DAW author if it wasn't for conferences. I would not have had a chance to pitch to Sheila and to talk to her at various world fantasies or anything of that. Conferences are a huge part of me as an author. Unfortunately, I haven't made the transition into the virtual world that well. I've actually, I've requested panels and to be, part of the online conferences, but I haven't had anybody actually say yes. So I haven't actually done any virtual conferences at all at this point. I'm still trying. I still have my name out there, and I'm struggling. What I'm hoping though is that by November-ish, we're all vaccinated, whether you're in the US or Canada or whatever, and I'm hoping that we can all show up at World Fantasy Convention in Montreal, and I can see everybody that I've missed over the last year, or almost 2 years by that point.
That would be epic. I wonder if we should just briefly mention, hi Peter, that you and I actually met, and Sheila at KeyCon. I was the guest of honor. Sheila came, basically I said, please Sheila, be guest of honor with me. And she came, and then she ran the pitch session. And after she said, oh yes, I'm so many great pitches. And there was this one guy. And then years later, there you go. This is, we sit down at dinner together as DAW authors.
That's right. That's right. I actually did my first pitch.
It was so easy.
Yeah, it was so easy. I have stories about that I won't tell right now, but that was an interesting pitch session. If I see anybody at a convention and they're interested in that story, I will gladly tell it many, many, many times because it's epic.
Oh, and I can tell Sarah's side of it, or Sheila's side of it.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, we've reached the end of our evening, so I'll turn it over to you folks one final time if you have any closing comments, and then I'll go over some procedural details.
Well, I'm going to jump in and do it first because this has been such a pleasure. Sorry again for my inadequate internet. Definitely will get better at this. And I would like to also urge you all to buy Gerald's new book because I have read it. I love it. It's imaginative, it's passionate, and it's got insanely wonderful people. And this man knows how to camp. Which is a camper myself. I do value that greatly. So yeah, Threader Origins, wonderful book. And thank you, John, for your patience and your help, and Claire and Sarah for helping to organize all this, and McNally Robinson. Thanks, and everyone who came.
I would just recap what Julie said, minus all the parts where I'll be bragging about my book, but thanking Claire and Sarah and you and everybody else. And Julie, it's always wonderful to sit down and have a chat with you. Your personality just bubbles to the surface, and I always leave feeling good about things. So thank you very much for joining me on this one. And thanks for having us, McNally Robinson. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure this evening. Just in closing, I'd like to remind everybody that Threader Origins, Book 1 of the Quantum Empirica, is available at McNally Robinson Booksellers. We have plenty of signed copies from Gerald, and he's also mentioned that he's very kindly offered to personalize copies. Basically, if you just get in touch with me, and that's very straightforward to do, just contact McNally Robinson and ask for John, or you can find my information on the website and let me know. Julie Czerneda also has the Essen stickers that are available. Just get in touch with her through her website and that will be sorted. Now, Mirage comes out April 6th and Spectrum comes out April 20th. So keep an eye out for both of those books as well, Book 2 and 3 in the Web Shifters library. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here this evening, for all of your questions, for being so engaged in this conversation. And to everybody watching on YouTube, I see that there's some folks there, and to everybody watching in the future as well. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's been a really lovely evening, and I'm grateful for this. Thank you all.